made a decision to run for city council. First time ever even thinking about running for political office, and I'm excited. It's hard, I'll tell you that. I have never done something so difficult in my life.
I can see that. That's kind of where we got into this. Is I was trying to get more involved and try to understand more stuff, and then the more I kind of messed with it, the more I didn't understand. And so not understanding, like, there was part of me, it's like, maybe I should get into the actual politics side of it. And we started doing this more as a joke podcast. And we had a whole big conversation about how important local politics is. And we don't know anybody. We don't know anybody that's in play. We don't know any of the people that work. In my personal opinion, at least, the News Sentinel is not very good at what they're supposed to be doing. Locally, at least, I always called the News Sentinel, it's USA Today with a really good UT sports section. And outside of that, it's really just past, not 100%, but for the most part, for the stuff that gets the most traction, that I see most passed around in the social sphere and stuff like that, it doesn't seem to be local news. And so, I just start calling people. It's like, hey, come on my show. Let me, because as much of it is for me is to understand the civics of it as it is to understand the person who is seeking the position.
Sure.
And so for me, this particular go around in the city races is weird because I'm not a resident. I am a stone's throw from the city line. I would be in Roberto's district if I were in the nearest city district that I could be. But, so we've had a whole bunch of information about how the primary and the general works, which I still think is weird. And the more I think about it, the more I don't like it. And I will go ahead and pitch to you, as well as I will start pitching to everybody, that we need to redo how these city elections are. To me, if you're supposed to represent a district, then exclusively the district should be the one voting for you, because we have, especially with how little turnout city elections generally get, there's a very good chance that a good groundswell of one group can not only take their district, but take multiple districts with it. And I don't think that's in the best interest of any districts or their residents. That being said, so restaurants and stuff like that. So was there a specific for the leap, or it was just kind of, you saw things shifting and wanted to get in there and
both?
Okay.
Both.
What's the specific?
So 12 years ago, I lived in the county. I wasn't in the city. And my wife and I opened up a restaurant in downtown. The restaurant's called Cafe 4. So we've been there 12 years this year.
Okay.
And I have to tell you, when we made the leap into the city, it was mind-blowing, the amount of what I call red carpet that was rolled out. I mean, that was back when Bill Haslam was our mayor, prior to him leaving and going to governorship. But the city literally, I almost feel like we were recruited to come in to kind of help satisfy a vision that was started probably 15 or more years ago. And we made the investment. I mean, we jumped down here. We moved down into the 4th District. So I've lived in the house now for almost 12 years. And the business, thrived. I have to tell you, we were very welcomed by the city. It was business started booming. We kind of were one of the first restaurants to kind of kick off the downtown. And I mean, everything around us was boarded up. There was only like 3 businesses, right?
I very much remember the downtown Market Square Gay Street was there.
Right.
Like, if you weren't there for a court date or something like that, you weren't going downtown. If you didn't have actual city business, or you had your lawyer's office because you were always down at the courthouse, there was no reason to go down there. Like, I want to say probably like 06, 07 when Brewery opened. I started going down there fairly regularly, but that was still like, it would be, we'd go, they did a Monday night poker game. I'm a poker junkie. And we went down there and played that poker game, and you'd leave at 9:30 p.m. and nobody.
Right.
Like, if it wasn't the group of people you were in downtown with, there was nobody else around. You look up and down Gay Street, and there's nobody there. The parking lot's got 20 cars, and that's 20 people that are in the place you just left.
Yeah.
And I remember that period of time, and I've been very pleasantly surprised. I don't even know if surprised is the right word, but I've been very pleased with the way downtown Knoxville has become its own kind of entity, and it's got a fingerprint to it. It's got its own special kind of vibe, and I appreciate that a lot. And I assume, and all of this is taking place before I paid a bit of attention to the politics part of it. And I assume there's some credit to go around for some of the intent behind that.
Well, I just think there was some vision, and what we're now seeing the benefit of was a vision that was started a long time ago. And subsequently, we've opened up several other small restaurants, other restaurants in the downtown, a couple of event venues, and with every single business that we started, it got harder and harder and harder to actually get our front doors open. Okay. And I don't really know why that occurred. I just feel like it was stuff that was happening inside of the city government. It was in the beginning, it was a lot of conversations, it was cross conversations, a lot of collaboration. And as time went on, it became very siloed. You would talk to, one department, city engineering, you'd talk to another, wastewater, you'd talk to building codes. The communication between those entities suffered over time, and you'd get an answer from one, and then you'd have to go and fix something that you did by talking to them with another group, and it just bogged down the process.
Right.
So, about 4 months ago, we opened up a place called Vita on Gay Street at 531 South Gay. And we were building this during the coronavirus situation, which made it hard in multiple ways.
Right.
It was very risky. We had already purchased the property, so we had kind of stepped in it, and we had to make a decision. Do we just sell it? I couldn't put the project on hold because when you buy a property, you have to pay the mortgage.
Right.
There's leverage on all this stuff, and this was not a small purchase. So I really just kind of was stuck with the decision of what do I do. So we did it, and it's turned out well. I will say that we've been, again, when we opened in January, the marketplace was ready. People were ready to get out.
For sure.
And so we were hit really hard, and we've gotten great reviews, and people seem to be happy with the concept. But when the project was over, so the way my wife and I operate, my wife operates all of our businesses. I don't do any of the day-to-day, but I do design and build these concepts. And so I'm very involved in all of the working with the different entities on getting things done, with the architect, with the engineers, trying to pull it together with the city to make sure we're doing the right things. I mean, we want to abide by the code. That's not the intent of the conversation. But it used to be very, what I say, welcoming the red carpet, and we have shifted so far, it is now nothing but red tape.
Right.
I could barely get my doors open. I literally had to go way up the chain in the city to get people to the door to get our certificate of occupancy. And even when they showed up the day that I called and they came out, they were quick to come out. They were even dumbfounded that we were having to meet on site. They didn't even understand in their own system how this could have gotten so messed up.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, I own a few businesses myself, and I've been through, especially in the bar restaurant game, and all the different permits and requirements that go in there, and it's just I've thought for years in dealing with it, and which probably my first real dive into it was maybe 8-9 years ago, and it's like for beer permit and stuff like that, they give you a nice sheet of a checklist.
Yeah.
But it's a get this person lined up, get them in the room, and then this person. But this person wants this other person first, but this person won't come till the fifth person comes, and the fifth person won't come until the first one came in the first place. And so it turns into this kind of show game. And it's like I totally empathize with that, and that's one of those things that I think as a city grows, it gets more complicated, making it harder. And at some point, the decision needs to be made to back the clock.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, we're growing fast, and I'll get into my metro thing here in a minute. That's a standard of me. But that there's that the foresight for the growth doesn't foresee how to handle the growth, I guess is a way to put it.
Yeah, we don't look far enough out. We look, beyond our nose, and goodness gracious, if you couldn't figure out, 10 years ago that Knoxville was getting ready to turn around and become what it's become, you were blind. We have not looked far enough out for the growth that we had. And now that we have the growth, and now we have all this red tape, if you will, this stalemating that's going on, now we have potential businesses in the city. Now we're talking about in the city, not the county. We see this in the city where now developers, small business owners are saying, look, this is too hard. Right. I don't want to do it.
Right.
Rents are higher, which is normal. That's to be expected. But people are now building their businesses in their homes where they can, or they're going right outside the city limits, right into the county, and they're building these businesses. Because we find that, if you look at the difference between the city and the county, you don't have these problems in the county, but we do in the city.
Right.
And the only thing I can point to is leadership in the city, because it started with leadership,
Right.
and we're now where we are with leadership. And I just feel like we've had a little bit of failed leadership along the way. And now I worry. I worry because, I'm almost embarrassed sometimes to tell people that, I'm a small businessman. I don't even see myself as small business anymore, because we've opened up, multiple different businesses. I probably have crossed that threshold. We have over 230 employees. But I look at the.
I think the general use is like 500 employees.
So I'm still small business.
I think 500 is.
It
when
doesn't
you
feel like with
kick
the
up
debt load that I've got. It doesn't feel like small business anymore.
I'm not.
Yeah.
It's not my definition, but I
Yeah.
think that's the definition I've heard before.
Well,
is that 500? Once you cross that 500 is when you get into medium size, and then
Yeah.
it's up into 5 figures before you get to large businesses.
I would love to be there. I think that the way to drive revenue into the city is for more businesses. More businesses mean more employees. It means more growth. It means better paying jobs. It lifts the city out of poverty. And I think right now, because we've got high rents, it's difficult to start a business. We see people moving out of the city, opting to go into the county or in totally different counties.
Right.
I think we're feeling the pinch. And if you look at the financial side of it, we're going to be left with nothing but tax increases to cover our missteps along the way. And nobody wants tax increases that don't provide services that equal the tax increases.
Right.
And so that's kind of, I think, where we are right now. You couple that, Seth, with, just to expand on the story a little bit, you couple that with the homeless situation that, by the way, was in play when we came downtown in 2008. We saw it.
Right.
Part of the reason we moved downtown is because we kind of got involved in the homeless scene, meaning we started meeting these people on the streets, and we realized we came out of West Knoxville. I lived in a bubble. I grew up in, deep Farragut. And when we built our business there, a year later, we moved downtown. My wife and I did to get out of the bubble, to actually be on the ground with these people that we now call humanity. It's humanity. It's real. There is poverty out there, and it's sad. So we got involved locally. We do a lot of work with homeless shelters. We do a lot of work with food, and we put ourselves in the game. But there was a 10-year plan back then to end homelessness. It's been 15 years. Nothing has happened. And look around you. It is worse now than it's ever been.
Right. And pandemic or not, it's still been getting worse.
The pandemic has nothing to do with it.
Right.
Nothing. The pandemic has nothing to do with a lot of things.
Fair.
But,
Yeah, and I mean, in that same 10-year period, we shut down Lakeshore, which then either put them on the streets or in the county prison system, which didn't help anybody either. And so, I mean, I agree with you on that. There's been, especially on the homeless issue, I remember, like, I had a buddy when we were in college, lived in the old city at the time, and I mean, there were a handful. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were here and there, but it wasn't all over the place. And and this was back when like half of the, like Gay Street was barely developed and all that kind of like all the stuff right off Gay Street was still there. Mm-hmm. And there was lots more open space where a camp could, break ground, for lack of a better word. And it wasn't like that then. And I agree. I think one of the big things to get to drive revenues, especially the year and a half we've been into this, and I still can't figure out to save my life which way, where, what taxes do where and who and whatever, and then how the school board gets their money and all that kind of stuff. Just the madness that is all that. But I mean, there's two things that the city makes money off of: sales tax and property tax.
Bingo.
And a better developed downtown is going to raise property tax because it's more value property. One of the things I found interesting recently that I'd heard, I was talking to, blank out his name, but from the Metro Planning Commission, is the feeling he's getting from the city council and the city leadership at large is they're trying to lower density in the city. And that county is trying to
say
push
something
up.
And they do another.
Because I don't like that's one of those things to me. It's just like I can't figure out what would be the why would we want to lower density downtown when we have a growing downtown, and especially, which I will give some credit to the pandemic for maybe expediting the blow up that we are getting now. I think there's more people moving sooner than maybe would have been because I mean, I think
You mean into the market?
right into Knoxville. I think Knoxville. I think the growth rate was there, but I think it kind of jumped up a few years ahead of schedule, I guess is a good way to say it.
Yeah.
And it's fairly apparent when you look in the housing market. I got a friend that's been on the market trying to buy a house for a year and a half now. I mean, pretty much they made the decision, we're going to go buy a house, and the pandemic hit, and it's been nothing but either overpriced or underdeveloped homes that they can get their eyes on. So like, I mean, he was joking the other day. He's like, we had a house that like it checked the boxes. It was a little bit more than we wanted to spend, and before we could finish scheduling a visit, it had
Sold.
3 offers.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, moving on to the
And
next
probably
one.
competing offers, and it went higher than it was supposed to sell for.
Yeah. And so it's, again, I think, okay, so I guess that's naturally rolls into it. The more I think about it, like I threw it out as a joke. It's always been a thing I've thought about, but I threw it out as a joke about a year ago when I had Kyle Ward on the show, just as almost as a way to gauge him as a candidate. Mm-hmm. And I'll do it to you. I've done it to everybody else. I've got to the point where I would like to really, really see a real conversation about whether Metro Knoxville is the right way to move. The more I think about it, the more I personally think it is, but I really just want to see a conversation, because I don't care about a commissioner or council when they don't get along. That doesn't matter to me, other than the effects of what those things do. Mm-hmm. And the general answer I'm getting in most conversations is that politically speaking, it's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. I don't care about the politically speaking part of it. Mm-hmm. Is it the right move for Knoxville? Is been my question in it. And again, like, these are the things. So we talk about the difference in the red tape as far as doing things in the county versus doing things in the city. We talk about property tax difference. We talk about density issues. To me, I feel like it's it's a planning conversation. As we're looking into the future, I feel like it's inevitable, and it's either we wait till we get there and react to it, or we plan ahead and start working our way.
It's complicated,
right?
it is complicated. I've had people ask me this, and having grown up in the Knoxville area, I can remember when I was a kid. So I'm almost 60 years old, and I can remember as a kid there being conversation about a metro government. And I don't even know all the different mayors along the times over the last 50 years who've had conversations. I don't know what gets in the way of it. I don't know if it's a power thing, if it doesn't make sense financially. I haven't delved deep enough into it, but I've had several conversations in the last couple of months where people are asking me the same question. Here's the thing.
My understanding was it was a ballot item in the mid '90s.
Yeah.
And it didn't get passed. And
I think it was even before that, though. I think it was talked about even in the '70s.
Perhaps.
Really
so,
did.
like, I know the last time it had any real traction was like mid '90s, and it didn't pass on the ballot item, and so it hasn't been re-upped in conversation since.
And I think it also has to pass twice. I think it's not just a single time at the ballot. My understanding is it has to pass twice.
I'd have to check with that.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that, because I know there's different formats on how to get there, and you're probably right on a couple of the formats, because it'll be it'll involve charters and stuff like that.
But it involves removing a charter,
right? And I think that's where some of that goes in. But like, again, I'm not sure.
From a business person standpoint, I mean, just going back to being a small businessman, my first business was in 1987 here. It was the most frustrating thing when you have to go, to the city county building, and you go over to one department, and then on the same floor, there's a whole nother department doing the exact same thing. 2 employees, same paperwork, 2 different bundles. It's like, what? I don't get this. It doesn't make logical sense. It does not make.
Right.
It just doesn't make logical sense.
And I'm open to the idea that there might be some structural sense on why it's that way, but I haven't heard it yet. So I'm with you. Like for me, I think there's certain things that I like the way our city government operates on things. I think I've gotten to the point where I really don't like the autonomy of the sheriff's office. I think it's a little bit too autonomous. I do like electing as many people as possible. That is a preference for me. But the recall process is so complicated that if we have a sheriff completely go off the rails, I'm not implying that we've had one yet. I'm just saying if we ever do, that recall process is too complicated and it is almost too difficult. Same as where we were talking about is multiple ballots, to get enough people to at least petition to recall to then start the process is beyond the capabilities of most, even strong activists inside the county. And so I don't like the sheriff's office being as autonomous as it is, but I think there's there's absolutely some redundancies that don't need to be there.
Right.
And really, when you say redundancies, I'm just saying money. It's just money. It's just more money going out to things that we could be spending.
I live in the city. I live in the city, and so I live over in 4th and Gill area, and I pay a pretty nice little county tax, just like you do.
Right.
But then I pay the same thing or more in city taxes.
Right.
And we know the current mayor's saying no city taxes this year, yet she just took us into the general fund by a significant amount to the lowest levels we've been in maybe history.
And I do, that does remind me, I promised that I would shout out that there is a petition going around as far as making it a ballot item to change taxes. I'll put that in the show notes. I made
it's on my website too now.
Okay. I didn't mean to do it in coinciding with you. I just reminded me that I did make that promise, that I would put that out there for people that want to. I'm not telling you what to or not to do with that, but yeah, because I mean there's the I can't remember who I was talking to. The city's probably got 3 years before they're in the black or in the red.
Maybe less.
If assuming nothing changes, which we still have a baseball stadium to build and other things like that. We'll talk about that in a second.
Well, I actually started thinking about that a little bit yesterday. Of if there was ever going to be a tax increase, this would be the year that you would do a tax increase.
Right.
This makes the most sense. I mean, you just did your budget. You just went into the red, and you dipped into the general fund. Now would be the time to do a tax increase. Yet the current leadership is saying no. And then I started thinking, oh my gosh, tell me we're not this political, where you've got 5 now city candidates that are running, how many? 7, 8 different city candidates are running. And now if you push that one additional year, you're hanging that wreath on the new people.
Right.
The incumbents are going to walk out if they lose. The wreath is now going to be put on the new city council people, and now we have to deal with something that should have been done maybe this year. It's a real interesting.
No, I think
conversation.
that sounds spot on as far as
I
don't know, because again, this is one of the things that I don't, and maybe you know better, and I hope if you don't already, you should soon. Is if I understand it correctly, the city council is fairly weak as far as the balance of power between them and the mayor's office.
Very weak.
My understanding is the mayor's office kind of gets what she wants. The council is just kind of there to support, and there can be opposition to it. But at the end of the day, if the mayor wants it, the mayor gets it.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is totally spot on. So it's kind of a weird position. It's like, then why are we even there if we can't impact what the mayor does? It's kind of like if you think of it as like a federal election, you've got a president, and then you've got a House and a Senate that either takes away or sends back or does whatever. We don't have that in locals. The mayor really is a powerful position. The mayor, our current mayor, she has the ability to basically send anything through, and the way our current council's set up, she's got the vote every single time on every single thing. There's very little balance.
Right, and if I understand it correctly, if a threshold isn't hit in the council voting, that it goes back to the mayor's office and the mayor can approve herself essentially.
Right.
Why'd
you waste the time?
Right. Apparently that happened with the budget this year. Is that there was it needed to be like a 7-2 or better.
Yep.
And it ended up being a 6-3, and so it goes back to the mayor's office. The mayor just pushes it through anyway. I don't remember don't quote me on the exacts of that, but it was something along those lines.
Right.
And so I guess the question is, one, for me, just out of the curiosity of the systems, I love that kind of stuff. I don't like it, but understanding it helps get us there. Is that something that a city councilor can do something about when in position?
I don't know the answer.
Okay.
I honestly, Seth, I'm not a politician. I am literally just a small business owner that has gotten so sick and tired of seeing the direction our city's going. I already explained the reasons why. You couple that with the crime situation. Something has to be done. The current city council has been in office for at least 4 years. They're finishing their 4 years right now. And they've had plenty of time under the previous mayor and the current mayor to get things done. Nothing is happening. It's like nothing happens. And now I guarantee the incumbents are going to come back and make all these promises. Oh, we can do this and we can do that. Because now they're feeling pressure from other people running. Why didn't they do it before? Why is it always everybody gets excited and wants to take action when their job is on the line? It's not even a job.
Right.
But when their career is on the line, whatever it is.
It's a joke amount of money, but it's money. You get paid for it a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I decided that I need to get my law degree. I need to be the law director of the county.
I'll be donating my income.
That's $276,000 a year is the law director's office.
Is it
for the county? Something like that. It's big. It's well into six digits.
I should go back and get my license. I don't think I have the aptitude for it.
It's a lot of money, and I assume the city's version of the same thing is, although it's appointed position, not elected, is still probably up there.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the same time, you're a good lawyer. You're going to be making that anyway. But so you got to make it worth a good lawyer's time to not do a regular practice. But I mean, I just blanked out on where I was going.
We're talking about, we originally were talking about metro government.
Right. And then, but then it was, like obviously the business part is a big one. The crime's an issue. Let's go a little further down that path.
Okay.
So,
crime being, dude, this is scary. Can I tell you a real story?
Sure.
This will be, if anybody's listening, this is something to hang on to. So 3 weeks ago, my son, 31 years old, was walking in Crouch Park, right across the street from Home Federal Bank. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, on his cell phone with my wife, his mom. And a gentleman, I will say, a homeless gentleman, came up from behind, reached around, cold-cocked my son, and knocked him out to the ground. Didn't mug him. My son's about like you, Seth. He's a pretty built up guy. He's pretty strong.
Comes on my show, calls
right?
me fat. All right.
I didn't say fat. I might call my son that.
I'm 6'2", 250. If that helps.
Well, he's 210 and he's 5'10", so he's shorter and stocky, right?
Okay. All right.
He's not somebody you'd go pick a fight with. I'll say that.
Okay.
Knocks my son down. My son gets up. My wife is hearing the whole thing going on because she's still on the phone.
Right.
And my son's like, kind of yelling, "Well, dude, what's wrong with you? Why are you hitting me? What's going on?" And the guy throws another punch, hits my son, knocks him back down to the ground again, and my son pops up and just cold cocks this guy, knocks him down hard. And this guy was 6'2", probably 250. He's about your size. The guy hits the ground, and right when that happened, a Good Samaritan saw my son hitting a homeless man. So the Good Samaritan comes out, grabs my son by the back, pulls his arms back, and starts telling him to get off this homeless guy. And my son's elbowing him, going, "I'm the victim here. You don't know what you're doing." And while my son is being held, the guy gets up again, hits my son right square in the nose, deviates his septum. And at that point, my son just broke away from the Good Samaritan and said, "You're committing a felony assault. You better get out of here." And then my son proceeded to just beat the heck out of this guy until the police came 34 minutes later and wanted to arrest him for public drunkenness. And my son said, "No. Notice all the blood all over everything?" He goes, "This is called felony assault." And so they took him to jail. He was out 24 hours later, by the way, because they don't hold people in jail even that have committed a felony assault. And there were people that saw it, that stuck around, that called 911. My point in telling you the story is, this is downtown Knoxville during the middle of the afternoon, before evening hours, unprovoked mugging, if you want to call it that. And we have a problem. We have gun violence it's happening now. A lot of gun deaths in East Knoxville. I know you know the numbers. We're now higher than Chicago per capita in gun deaths in Tennessee, in Knoxville, Tennessee, for God's sake, Knoxville. And I live in 4th and Gill. There's not a night that goes by where someone didn't get their car broken into, someone got something stolen out of their yard, off their porch, somewhere. And this is just a small little community in a larger community inside of a district, inside of a city. And it's starting to move all over the whole city. We have got to get our arms around this. I don't know the answers, but no one's doing anything. And, I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this, but even our current leadership, they haven't handled this well. They haven't handled any of the conversations and the communication well with all of these deaths that have occurred with young kids in Knoxville, Tennessee. Somebody has to step up, Seth. I mean, if not you, who?
Right.
If not now, when? We all have heard that before.
Right.
That's why I got involved in city council. I literally retired from my day job a year and a half ago, and I was reading this book again, and it said, "If not you, who? If not now, when?" And I was like, "This is speaking to me. I've got to do something."
Right, that is one of the better.
It's a real example.
And it's a great it's a good mindset to have on a lot of things. It's like we can't just sit here and talk about, and even though that's kind of my version of me and now is talking about it, but I'm trying to get it in a way that more people can actually get involved in it. I think that's the biggest problem. I mean, regardless of my feelings for you, I can't vote for you anyway, but I'm very excited and curious to see what the turnout is this time around.
It'll be interesting.
Chris Davis is in here. We were talking about it, and some of these primaries under 1,000 total votes.
I know.
And I don't know. I'm sure there's some metric for how many per district is the way the city's broken up or whatever. But I've got to assume with what we have 6 districts and 180,000. So was the math 20,000 per district? So
that's about right.
So 0.5%, is that right math?
It's more like what I've heard is like in a typical district you'll get below 8%.
Yeah, 8%. That's awful. Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you look at society, and we used to be a city where you could get involved locally and affect change. And somewhere over the last 20, 30 years, it seems like everything's moved to this federal spotlight.
I agree.
And now it's like people have lost their passion, their love, their kefi, if you will, for making things happen here. So we wait for something to happen at this super high level at the federal government or even the state level, and by the time we get to the local elections, we're burned out. We're sick of hearing it. We don't even care. We don't give a damn.
Right.
And people don't vote.
Right. It needs to be absolutely backwards.
I know. That should be the job. By the way, that should be the job of a good city council person. Not to get the role, but to get the role and then actually bring your district into conversation. Join the neighborhoods together. Have meetings outside of the monthly city council meeting. Bring the people together. Educate them on the influence that they have collectively, and then do something to improve your neighborhood and your neighborhoods that touch you, and create a healthy community. But that's not what happens. And this is the kind of thing that I want to get involved in.
Gotcha. Okay, so that brings it up in I guess in a way. So we talked about budget issues and and kind of runaway spending, and I got at least the strong inference that the likelihood of raising taxes to help pay for the continuation of this budget is not your preference on how to do it. So
too late.
But what do we do what do we do to trim that budget down to start getting into a reasonable number to not continue to let this thing balloon out of control?
Fiscal responsibility. I mean, we have leadership that wants people to feel good and do good. And I'm all for greenways and parks and all this stuff. That is not what I'm talking about here. But when you spend $500,000 on an artwork, $500,000 could have gone a long way to put resource officers back in the schools instead of pulling them out. Or it could have gone to a homeless program to actually start or jumpstart with grant money, a program to get rid of the homeless. Or it could have been something that you use to entice large companies to come in somewhere in the city limits. I'm not talking about downtown. I'm talking about we have huge geographies outside the downtown in the city where we could bring in better manufacturing, larger businesses, some other corporations like, you've got Clayton Homes and you've got Radio Systems and you've got Cirrus Aircraft, just to name a few of these great corporations that have come to Knoxville or started here. We could have more of those here, and that would drive revenue. It would raise poverty levels out of poverty. It would put more revenue into this tax system, but instead, we do the opposite. We have an anti-business climate pushing people into the county. We have greater illegitimate fiscal spending. I don't know who oversees this. In the end, I honestly think the mayor has the call on everything that gets spent. And, if you've got great leadership that understands fiscal responsibility, great. But if you don't, you have a situation where we are right now. And I hope, I'm saying so many things here that I just didn't plan on saying. I hope it doesn't come back to haunt me. But, the reality is we just have to, if I were to run a business, and I've run a bunch, If I ran a business the way we run our city, I would have been bankrupt a long time ago. You don't have the luxury of doing that because they don't earn the money. They are given the money. They take the money.
Right.
And that's a whole different game. I can't go out and say, okay, every customer that ate in my restaurants last year, I need you to send me a $10 bill because I screwed up last year really bad.
Right.
You know, it doesn't work like that. But that's exactly what's happening. And so we have to figure out fiscal spending. It's a little bit late. It's a day late and $1 short. The budget was approved. She spent the money. We spent more than we brought in. We are inevitable that we're going to get a tax increase. The question is now, how big is it going to be?
Right.
Are we going to be in Nashville, Tennessee, where they had a 34% property tax increase a year and a half ago?
I mean, if I want to be,
are we going to be there?
If I want to be super selfish, I'm looking forward to that tax hike because that brings my home value way up.
Yeah, but
because I'm in the county, but
we don't want greed and we don't want selfishness.
No, I agree. I'm just saying, like, if for the county residents and the handful of business areas in the county, that's good for them. But long term, it turns the city back into what it was 12, 15 years ago, which we spent so much time and energy trying to get away from.
Right.
Because like I said from the beginning, like I've been very I moved down here when I was in high school, didn't know any better. But just to watch Knoxville grow, especially downtown from a nothing,
it's beautiful.
I was a UT student, lived on campus for a couple of years. We went past downtown to the old city, or we went down to the Strip, and that was it. Yeah. That's a whole other thing. I don't want to go into my Strip complaints. The Strip is terrible. Just go ahead and burn it down and start over or something. Anyway,
I think they did.
They're doing a good job of. Okay, fine, we're there. It's just so I get the premise of these multi-use 5-6 story buildings or whatever, but it's just so cookie cutter. And it's like I can go to any other city.
Yeah, let's be creative.
See that thing. And so there was some character down there, and they just kind of flattened that character out. So
I believe the same thing. That's evident. And if you've ever been in any of my restaurants, there you can see that we think way out of the box. We want something to be different. We don't want cookie cutter. We want unique places that make you feel like you went on vacation somewhere.
I like that. That's fun. I'll have to check it out. I don't know if I've been into your places or not. We'll have to talk about that off air. But you've already done enough plugging for today. I don't get paid for your plugs.
Sorry about that. It's what I do for a living.
No, I'm not mad at it at all. I do it too. I'll be in the middle of a conversation about something, and somebody will say something about the school board. Like, hey, have you heard my podcast? I mean, just like completely non sequitur. I don't care. Just listen to my podcast.
Second nature, right?
Yeah, it's what we do. And so, okay, so I mean, and again, this goes right into the fiscal spending thing and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel about this baseball stadium? Or I'm sorry, this multi-use project. Everybody gets mad at when I call it a baseball stadium.
What are they?
The Boyd Sports Smokies project.
So here's my thinking on this. All right, so I've got to take a step back, and this is going to sound really political, but it's real. So I own businesses right next door to it. As a matter of fact, I own 2 buildings, literally a nice 5 wood, and you can hit the stadium.
Okay.
So I am pro business development. I think we should bring as much into our city that will benefit the city and tourism and build revenues as possible. Now, having said that, I'm always concerned when you have tax dollars funding things for government. I haven't seen all the numbers, Seth. I haven't looked at it. I don't even know if the final numbers are done yet. And until I do, I can't make a final judgment call. So I'm a little bit torn. I'll be honest with you. I'm pro stadium. I like the idea of it. I think it could be great for our city. I think it'd be great for Knoxville. But when I say that, I am coming from a little bit of a selfish standpoint. I think my businesses are going to thrive because of it, even more than they are now. And so somebody's asked me the question the other day, and he said, well, what if you were on city council and you had to vote for it? And I said, I would have to recuse myself because it's hard to make good decisions, and I do have character and I do have integrity, but there's no way to vote on something if you know you're going to get a lick of the lollipop.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I would either really have to look at it from a financial lens or a social lens and make that determination and try to step out of the fact that, any business in downtown, Old City, even South Knoxville is going to benefit from something like this. And I think East Knoxville really will benefit the most. I mean,
right.
it is a blighted area, man. I mean, when I built my business over there 3 years ago, people thought I was nuts because I'm building it next to homeless camps under a bridge. I'm at the far end of East Jackson, the far end of it, right next to Barley's, and people don't want to go down there.
Right.
And I have to tell you, they've raised the buildings that were on the property. It feels so good over there now.
Really?
Whether
I've been down there.
You'll
I've
get your mind blown.
times.
It's almost like, what? How could this big old piece of property be right here? Now, if the stadium makes sense, in the end, the people are going to make that decision. There's so much controversy over this thing, and I can't believe there's so much controversy, but there is. I don't know how it's going to fall, but the chips are going to fall where they may.
Right. I mean,
we'll either have it or we won't.
Right. And if
then it'll be something else.
Right. If nothing else, that was a solid political answer anyway, because even you don't get to make the decision anyway. It'll be done before you take office.
Yeah, it will.
Before elections or after. Yeah.
After the elections.
You'll be elected after this thing will happen if that goes.
That's right.
So, and I get it. It's been to me it's been another good measuring stick to talk about. Whether or not it is something that you have direct influence on or not, because I think it is a very interesting, situation, and to me, it almost is the best illustration of how differently the county and the city are operated, because the county's already got it figured out. There's no budgetary issues for the county on
right.
at least the general format of what we're trying to do. It's really the city's the one that's going to have to come up with some money that they don't know where it's coming from.
And now they just basically emptied the general fund out.
Right. And I didn't see if it was in there as a I don't know, whatever the proper term for a note in case.
I don't know if it is or not yet. But can you imagine what? Okay, let's just play this out. So, current budget wipes out our general fund. We lose our bond rating. We have to put money back in the general fund to get the bond rating back. Mayor decides there's going to be a tax increase. It's substantial. People, and by the way, I want to come back to this because it's important what I want to say about this. But people now in the entire city are funding all of the spending that the current administration has done. That now includes a multi-million-dollar tax burden that most of those people may not even utilize in any way. Think of the disruption that's going to occur politically in the climate that's going to create here. And let me just say this. So I've been out into the 4th District for the last month, and I'm going to people's houses. And going back earlier, remember I told you I moved from West Knoxville to downtown to kind of get an idea of understanding humanity better and kind of getting out of the bubble? Now I'm taking myself into even further out of the bubble. Because I live in 4th and Gill, and let's face it, 4th and Gill is a nice little neighborhood. It's an affluent, progressive neighborhood. Now I'm getting out into the throes of the community, and I'll knock on a door, and I'm standing at the door, and I'm looking around, and I see a house that has gutters that are full and falling off, and a roof that needed to be completely replaced. I'll get emotional talking about this. And a roof that needed replacing 10 years ago, and siding coming off of the house. And the yards aren't kept up with, and the person will come to the door, and I realize why the house is in disarray. It's because these people are poor. It has nothing to do with their job, what they do. They may not make enough money to make ends meet or whatever. You don't know what's going on in the household. But the fact of the matter is, poverty exists, and these may be a $45,000 or $50,000 house. We're not talking about, the $250,000 house that everybody wants to buy right now.
Right.
We're talking about $50,000 or $60,000 at the most of value. And then you start thinking, at least I do, what would a 10% tax increase do to that person? Am I going to feel it? No, I'm not going to feel it. I wouldn't even feel a 20% increase. It wouldn't hurt me. You know what I mean? I'm still going to be able to drive my car and make my payments. But what about the masses out here in these communities? And let me tell you, when I say masses, I would say the clear majority of homes are the ones I'm talking about right now. Right. The clear majority.
In your district, right.
Yeah, in my district.
Right.
It's working class.
All right, let's back up a second just to clarify that point. District 4 is North Broadway, Central Avenue corridor, all the way into the 4th and Gill, and that's when it switches over to 6? When it gets to the downtown
the interstate separates it.
Okay, so you get all the way into there to where the Carecuts is?
Carecuts.
It's a homeless thing.
It's not there.
Oh yeah, they're removing it. She
it's
told me
gone.
about that.
It's gone. So it's right there is where it starts.
Okay.
Okay.
And then it goes up Central Broadway.
It goes up Broadway, not Central.
Not Central at all?
No. If it does, it kind of is a little bubble over by Baxter Avenue area, but not up Central Corridor.
Okay.
And I don't. That district is I think that's SEMA's district.
3.
Yeah, I think it is.
I mean, I could pull up a map.
I don't know.
Anyway, so yeah, it's up Broadway. Fountain. It goes up into Fountain City, and then it stops.
Right at Halls.
The city stops at the top of the hill going into Halls.
That's right.
Okay. All right. So I wanted to back that up because I know that area well. Me and the missus, and Sam. For those that listen to the show regularly, we shared a little tiny pink house, right there. They call it Fellini. I don't know where that name
Fellini
comes
Kroger,
from.
man.
Yeah, that was the Fellini Kroger. Going back to crime stories, one of my favorite little crime stories ever. So that was our Kroger. We were bartenders and servers and stuff like that.
It's my Kroger too.
So we'd shop late at night there, and this is right when UScan became a thing. And so we're at 2 a.m. or something like that. We're going through UScan, and we got normal, like we knew the different people that worked there fairly well. And so we're going in and we're scanning some stuff out, and you see this guy runs by us. And then one of the staff guys that we know runs by us, and he's yelling at the guy by name.
Oh, yeah.
By name, and like goes and they get him in the parking lot, whatever happens. And he comes back in. I was like, what the hell was that, man? He's like, oh, that's Roger. He steals steaks all the time.
Right.
It's like, all the time? It's like, yeah, it's all the time. Anyway, random crime story. So anyway, I know that neighborhood, and that house, like as you were describing the houses you're knocking on the door, you probably knocked on the door in the house that we lived in.
Probably.
Problem with that to me, and this is a greater philosophical societal issue, is how many of those houses do you think are owned by the tenant?
The majority.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of rental homes out there, but the ones that I just described aren't owned by an investor, because an investor would put a roof, they'd have the gutters, they'd have the yard mowed, they'd have siding fixed.
True.
These are people living in these houses, and you just start thinking about them, and your heart goes out to them, because you start thinking about fine, if I have to pay another $500 a year in taxes, not a deal killer, but would $100 a year impact that house?
For sure.
Hell yeah, it would.
Yeah.
It would be huge. And it could be the difference between food on their table, gas in their car to get to their job. Who knows? The gutters that they need on their house. I mean, it's just, it's a sad, we live in a sad world, and it's our responsibility to make it not sad. You wake up every morning, you, Seth, me, Lauren Ryder, everybody, we wake up every morning and we have the ability to set someone on a different trajectory, a different course with the things we do and the things we say every day. And if you think about that every day, and I think about it every morning when I get up, who am I going to impact today in a good way? Because by the way, that can be a good thing. You could also devastate someone with something you do or say also. We have decisions that we have to make as human beings, and we need to bring those decisions all the way down to the street level and do what we're called to do as people.
Right. Okay. So as you're telling the story and as you're telling that part of it, my mind's going to this spot where it's like I'm thinking about it, and so we're just going to kind of run down this hypothetical house, right? And so we're assuming that they're working, but not, they're what we call the working poor.
Yeah.
They're probably getting some state and federal assistance of some sort.
Possibly.
How much is there anything in the city budget that does anything that this family might? I guess the question is, and this is a better way to ask the question is, what does the city should functionally be doing for its residents? And so we're talking about this $100 a year tax increase. When we dump that on this house that the gutters are falling off of, is there even a smidge of a chance that homeowner is going to go,
No.
Oh, yeah, but I'm going to get this, or this is going to be, my neighborhood's going to be safer. They're going to fix that pothole that's been out here for 6 years.
It should be those things. It should be, if the city's taxing the people for money to offer services that they should be getting at discounts to operate or hire certain organizations, a police force, fire, EMS, and all that kind of stuff. We should be providing the best services to the people that we can. Unfortunately, what you just described is moving towards socialism, and it's where a government takes the money and then helps everybody to a certain level. I don't believe in that. I'm definitely a conservative, and I believe that anybody can do anything they want in life. You do need to be willing to work hard. You have to trudge through problems. I never had anything given to me in my life. I didn't inherit any money, never have. I didn't have a family that owned a business that handed it over to me. My wife and I worked really hard to have the things we have. We've created jobs. We've created businesses that the city enjoys downtown. We've invested our monies. We live quite meagerly. We don't take vacations. We don't, wear jewelry. We just want to improve the city. I don't know how you take care of these people. There should be federal government monies, taking from across a larger swath, because we sure don't have it in the city. And I don't even think we have it in the state. Maybe we do, but we do need to be helping these people. I think it's a responsibility of of organizations, of community, of people, government officials. We should be reaching out to these people and helping them when we can. If you can't financially help someone, that's fine. But you know what? Some of these people just need someone to educate them and say, hey, have you thought about doing this? Can I give a quick example?
Sure.
Knocked on a door. Guy comes to the door. Guy was probably 65, 70 years old, almost my age, or my age, I'm almost that age. And we get into a conversation, and he asked me what I do for a living, and I told him. And he says, oh, my son's been wanting to own a restaurant for a long time. I go, really? How old is he? He's like 27, 28 years old. I was like, here's my cell phone number. He goes, what do you want me to do with it? I said, give it to him. Have him call me. I'll mentor him. He goes, what do you mean? I said, I've mentored hundreds of young men and women over the last 30 years. I love doing it. It's one of the things I do. He says, how much will it cost? I said, nothing. Have him reach me. You know what? The kid called me that day. And he said, Mr. Klonaris, he goes, my name is so-and-so. And he says, my dad told me that you would help me kind of figure out some things. And I was like, sure. We have coffee set up for next week.
Nice.
Yeah. This is the kind of thing that you should be doing, though. We all should.
Right.
But we got our little blinders on. We're stuck in our own games. We don't really pay attention. There's greed. There's whatever out there. There's focus. But you got to collaborate. You got to open it up. And I'm hoping that this could be something. Remember earlier when I was talking about bringing neighborhoods together and communities together and have them have conversations and build for the greater good? This could all be part of what you do. There's plenty of nonprofits to tie into. You don't need another nonprofit in Knoxville.
I agree with
right?
that. Right.
There's way too many.
Because that was a thought that I'd had is like on the homeless thing.
Plenty.
I had Marty from Haircuts on, and she was talking about it and some of the different organizations that she does stuff with, and the other ones that we know of that exist. And it's like, I don't like it. Again, not having a good full grasp on it, but it seems to me like there's lots of services in place. It's just trying to figure out how to kind of coordinate it to get the proper person into the proper system to help them get through whatever their situation is.
Well, and it's what you described early in the segment is you said, you used to be in the bar or a restaurant business and you had to go to this department, this department, but you had to figure it out on your own.
Right.
But what if there was just one person that you could go to and that person says, oh, here's your situation. Here, you got the bullet list, but now let me tell you who you need to talk to, why you need to talk to him. And by the way, if you have a problem, call me and I'll facilitate.
Right.
This is what we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah, it's cool.
It is cool. That's one of those things, especially, and again, it goes into the.
Excuse me.
You're quite all right. It goes into the revenue generation. It gets the poverty. It'll at least take pokes at the poverty situation. Yep. It can get people back to work. All right, so I got to take the opportunity, and this is one of the things that I'm bad at. Okay. Because I bring in things that aren't important as far as a candidate goes, but. There's been a lot of conversation. We did a half an episode the other day about it. The employment problem with restaurants right now, at least the perceived one. And so we've gone back and forth. We all have our different ideas on it. I figure if I'm going to have a restaurateur on the show, I might as well take the opportunity to ask about it. So have you personally had a big issue coming out of the pandemic?
Absolutely.
Okay. And so, I mean, where do you think it's at? Like, what do you think's the genesis for this?
Whoa! So this is gonna get me in trouble.
It's your campaign. I'm not trying to ruin it.
You know what? It's real though. So when pandemic started, we were forced to shut down in the city. We shut down for 6 weeks, all of our places. So we ended up, furloughing, which means firing all of our employees. We kept 7 employees out of about 130 that we had at the time. And those 7 employees, which consisted of basically salaried people that were in management positions, they stayed and we did what we could to survive, to pay the mortgages. We actually were selling food to go just like everybody else and bottled cocktails and all that stuff.
That's sticking around.
I hope it does.
No, it's in. It's going in July 1.
Is it done?
Yeah, it's going to July 1.
It really helped us out. And we did that only at one of the restaurants. We actually shut, our flagship restaurant down at the time on Market Square. We just couldn't do it. We weren't really, our restaurants were never designed for carry-out food or delivery.
Right.
We don't even use like Uber Eats and things like that. We just don't play that game.
Well, nobody should. They suck, but that's a separate.
Well, that's why we don't do it, because you don't know what you're sending out and what they end up getting.
Yeah.
So quality is important.
They take a bunch of your margin that you don't have.
They
much
take
of
all
in
the
first
margin.
version. Yeah.
They take it all. So
I don't like those guys. Anyway.
So we lost our employees, and so then so that was in March. So March, April, late May, we called up our employees and said, okay, we're going to be opening up soon. Everyone come back. We got 40% of them back. 40%. And I was like, where are the other 60%? And they would get on the phone and say, dude, why? I'm enjoying my video games, and the government's paying me $600 more a week. And I'm making more money in some cases now than I was making serving or working in the kitchen or dishwashing. And by the way, let me also add that we start our employees way above $15 an hour, even our dishwashers. Sometimes it's $17 an hour. And we've been doing this for several years, way before any of the pandemic thing. So we were like, well, we need you back. And so we gave them a chance. If they said no, we said, you're terminated. We'd send the information to the state, and we'd terminate, and they would not get their employment benefits anymore. So what these people did is they were still collecting from the federal. So what they did is they went and swapped jobs. And what we found in the entire restaurant industry is that, if you owned a restaurant and I owned a restaurant, I got your crappy employees and you got our crappy employees back, and we just kind of played a swap game around town.
Right.
So that was
normal pre-pandemic too.
It was. That's always going to be the case. Although
yeah.
we really have great employees in our places. We feel like we have the best employees in Knoxville, and we do attract the best. Our businesses do, and I won't go into why, because that's marketing, but or promoting. I will say this: when Governor Lee refused the additional federal money, which is going to take place, I think, next week.
I think, it's sometime in June.
Sometime coming up in the next week or two. We feel confident that was a smart decision because, and this is where I'm going to get in trouble, what we really did is we gave people a taste of socialism. Stay at home. The government will give you your money. You don't have to work. You become lazy. Your old bad habits become new bad habits again. And this is what happens to societies. We live in a free enterprise society where we're told and taught, work hard, get up, do something, make a difference, build, create. And when you teach the opposite, which is what we taught, and it didn't take long. It was so quick. We fell to literally something that looks very similar to what socialism looks like. And I am definitely not a socialist. So that's as far as I can take it without being really political. And I'm probably going to hear it from all my people out here, my constituents, that, oh my God, Jim, what did you do today?
I mean, we got to, and again, for this election, for all intents and purposes,
it's a nonpartisan election, but I'm giving you my political beliefs.
I mean, it's as partisan as any other one. You just don't have an R or a D next to your name on the ballot,
right?
Or
an I.
City Council, CCM, whatever that is. They're
What's
never
that one.
The City Council movement.
They have their own little. They have their own little CCM.
No, but I guess they'd be a C if they could get the. Well, I lean libertarian. I've been a fan of the libertarian movement for a long time.
That's
and stuff
cool.
Like that, and I've been trying to push into and help out with trying to get ballot access for other parties, period. And that's a whole state issue as far as trying to get that done, which is near impossible. Just like we were talking the recall, the amount, so I figured I did the math. If I were to run for District 4 County Commission and I wanted to run as a libertarian, to get the Libertarian Party on the ballot, I'd have to get 56,000 signatures.
That's
even though I only want to get it for my District 4, which is...
So you'd have to go county-wide
I'd have to go statewide, essentially, because the state would have to approve it the way that whole debacle works.
Interesting.
But one of the things that I'd heard in conversation that I think would be really cool if we're going to do stuff, on a city level, if we're going to invest in businesses, you'd mentioned trying to attract large businesses into the city limits. I like some of the talk about some of the more small business attractor and some micro loan kind of or micro grants or whatever you want to term them, because I like the idea of as a fiscally responsible move, you take 10 companies, loan them $10,000 a piece, that's $100,000 going out instead of one. So if one fails and it's all 100 grand, that 100 grand's gone. But you get 10 companies and they have a solid business plan. Not all 10 are going to fail. You're likely going to get the majority of the money back. That's the thing I've been hearing talk about, that I think that's something that a city could do to attract growth in a different way than always being the big guys. Because that's something that you sit and watch. And then, we talked about the baseball project, and there was the whatever Regal down on the other side of the river and all those kind of things. And it's like, yeah, that's cool and great to have a big, stamp signature big business that operates out of Knoxville. We got the boat group, Bunswick Boat Group, and Sea Ray and all that kind of stuff. It's stamped for Knoxville, but it's like, I like the small business guy. I want the little ones, that, because again, it's an innovation thing. The guys that are doing new things differently because they don't have the power and play that they've done forever. I'd love to see some stuff like that come into effect on a citywide level.
I could see that.
I think it'd be a cool. I think it's one of those. It's not to throw out a potentially gross word, but it's more equitable to Knoxvillians, regardless of a race or anything like that. But all right, so yeah. Usually, you're not in, so I'm not going to ask about that one. All right, so give me some plugs for the campaign, and we'll wrap this up, and we'll get you back to your busy life.
Plugs for the campaign. Well, it's an important election. It's going to be a deciding election. In other words, like I said earlier, we all have the ability to set a new trajectory on our daily lives, and I think that this election is going to potentially change the trajectory of where we are as a leadership group. And I just think that there's people running that are very like-minded to me in District 1, 2, 3. I'm running 4, and District 6. And I just feel like if you're happy with the way the city's rolling, you like the leadership, you like the crime rate, you like the homelessness situation, you like the irresponsibility with fiscal management, you don't want it to grow, you don't want businesses to come in, then don't go vote. And if you decide you do want lower crime, you want fiscal responsibility, you want the businesses to come back into the city and out of the county, you want to start structures to end homelessness while maintaining all the wonderful things we have in our city now. I'm not saying erase anything we've done. Then you need to go vote. And you need to go vote on August 31st. It is the primary. The top 2 people from the districts will emerge from the primary, and it'll go to a citywide election. And the citywide election will then vote for one new city council member in each of those 5 districts that are running this year.
Right, which is all the districts except for 5, which...
yeah, I don't understand that either, do you?
Yeah.
That'd be a good segment, by the way. Hey,
dog.
What's his name?
He snuck out. That's Rowdy. He usually breaks into shows.
Hey, bud.
So Rowdy made his official appearance.
I even got a kiss, man.
That's the time to call it show.
I even got a kiss.
Well, we were joking earlier. He did not like Dan Davis. Almost in agreement, everybody. Rowdy's in the house.
Hey, buddy.
Thanks to Jim Klonaris for coming in and doing the show today. We'll put a link to his website or Facebook page or something like that in the show notes. Stick around, and I got another one this week, and then it's vacation time. So have a good day, everybody.
Thanks, Seth.
Thank you, Jim.
That was fun.
We're still rolling for a second.
Sorry.
Just gotta let the music run out. It's not a big